With the Miami Dolphins on a bye, it's the perfect time to take a look into the future. So that's what we're doing on today's Same Old Dolphins Show.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphins Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people. Say it one more time without your mic on mute.
Hello to the people.
There we go. Brain, it's good to see you as always. I'm always glad you're here on the show, and it's wonderful to get a chance to do this podcast with you. But I'm extremely grateful on a day like today when apparently my voice is failing me, and it's a struggle to get words out. So on this particular instance, I'm really happy that you're here because you can help me do the heavy lifting as I struggle to get through this podcast episode.
Oh, I'm gonna Ultimate Warrior this thing. I'm reaching up to the heavens and I'm summoning all my warrior powers right now. I'm gonna give you a full press, overhead press, to do the heavy lifting for the rest of this.
Is fantastic. I did not think we were going to get an Ultimate Warrior reference on the show, but we did. So that's excellent, excellent work by you in this instance. Well, today on the show with the Dolphins on a bye week, we are going to take a look into the future. We're going to look at the final 6 games of the season for the Miami Dolphins very quickly and try to figure out what this team is going to do the rest of the way. And then we're going to cast our eyes forward to the offseason and look at some of the possibilities for the routes that this team could decide to take heading into the 2026 season and what the implications would be of each of those very real possibilities, because I think at this point it's anybody's guess how the Dolphins are going to proceed. But before we do that, a reminder to everybody, if you're not doing so already, make sure you are following us online. You can follow me at Amplify to Rock on Blue Sky. He is at Aaron the Brain. That's at Aaron the Brain. The show is at Same Old Dolphins. You can also follow us on Instagram at Same Old Dolphins. Download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, everywhere you get your podcast. Make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. It is your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. And of course, I'd be remiss if we didn't also mention that you should go to caneswear.com to get all of your fantastic Miami Dolphins merch. If you're looking for the latest and most affordable Miami Dolphins gear, Miami Heat gear, Florida Panthers, Inter Miami, Miami Hurricanes, Florida Gators, FSU Seminoles, UCF Knights, whatever it is, caneswear.com is going to have you covered. So head to caneswear.com to get your merch. And by the way, they ship internationally as well. So if you're an international fan looking for a holiday gift for a friend of yours, that is the spot to do it. Speaking of holiday gifts, Dolphins Talk Extra. Boy, that is a perfect place to go for a holiday gift. Get somebody a subscription to Dolphins Talk Extra. Then they get all of the regular Dolphins Talk podcast, but all of the bonus segments as well, access to our Discord server, and access as well to all of the contests and fun things that we're doing over there at Dolphins Talk Extra. That's patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. You can join the fun for as little as $3 a month. Shout out to everybody watching live in the I'm a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page. Shout out to everybody watching on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Take a moment right now, if you will, smash that like button and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. All right, Brain, let's dive into it here. The Dolphins have 6 games left here in 2025, excuse me. And I'm not going to lie, at this point, these last 6 weeks look a bit more favorable than we thought maybe they would at the beginning of the season. Although, the Dolphins are still the Dolphins. So what exactly can we say about that? I mean, it's a little unclear, but let's get into it. When they come back from the bye, they'll have a home game against the Saints. They'll travel to New York on a Sunday afternoon to take on the Jets. Then they have a Monday night game on the road against the Steelers. Home again for a Sunday night game against the Bengals, although I think there's a decent chance that game could get flexed out of Sunday night. Then you've got week 17 at home against the Bucs, and then on the road for the final game of the season against the New England Patriots. There is an argument to be made that each of those can be a very winnable game for the Miami Dolphins, but I would also say there's an argument to be made that the Dolphins could lose all of those games as well. So, Brain, let me ask you, of the 6 games remaining, how many wins do you realistically see this Dolphins team walking away with?
2 or 3.
I think thank you for doing all of that heavy lifting for me. I really appreciate it. You really coming through in a big spot here, Brain.
All right. So the way I see it, you come out of the bye and you get a home game against the Saints. The Saints are terrible. You're coming off of a bye. You've generally been playing better, although they did not play well in the game against the Commanders, but they got themselves a victory. They're going to have Austin Jackson back. They're going to be, about as healthy as they've been, all season, all things considered. So I think they're going to beat the Saints at home. At the Jets, I think they win that game. I think the Jets, at that point, you're now 5-7. The ball is really rolling towards that momentum of we can really win out. Like, we've got things moving in the right direction. The Jets are a bad team right now. They've sold off they were a bad team to begin with, and they've sold off their best parts for future draft capital. The Jets are a team that's firmly, not that they're going to just lay down, but they're firmly with their sights set on the future, not the remainder of 2025. And I think the Dolphins will not take a road game lightly, and they'll go into the Meadowlands and they'll beat the Jets. Whether or not that the weather is bad, I think Miami will get that win. At the Steelers on Monday night, I think is entirely dependent on whether or not Aaron Rodgers plays. He's got a slight fracture in his non-throwing hand. Supposedly he's pushing to try to play this week. I don't think that's likely. And I would be surprised if he plays this week or next week. But given that he's not playing, or given that he's trying to push for playing this week, I think there's a reasonable chance that he ends up, ready to play, because he's basically got 3 weeks. He's got the Bears this week, the Bills, the Ravens. I would guess that they're going to sit him against the Bears. And they've got 2 massive games, conference games, particularly that game at Baltimore, that they're going to be trying to get him healthy for. And even if he doesn't play against the Bears, the Bills, and the Ravens, and let's say at that point, Baltimore is now past them, they're still going to be very much in the race for the AFC North, and they're going to know that they need Aaron Rodgers back. Home game, Monday Night Football. I get the feeling he's going to play. Unless he comes back early and then aggravates the injury, you never know what's going to happen. But I would say that if Aaron Rodgers does play in that game, that's a loss. And look, it's prime time. Everything's going your way. You got the momentum going. Cold weather game, good team on the road. It's just classic same old Dolphins to go into that game and just get your doors blown in. And that's kind of what I would expect to happen if Aaron Rodgers plays. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, I can absolutely see the Dolphins winning that football game. And now all of a sudden they're 6-7. And then they've got 2 of the last 3 games at home. But that game against the Bengals.
It's worth noting, Brian, worth noting here, if they beat the Steelers after beating the Jets and the Saints, that they would actually be 7-7.
7-7. So they'd be 500 at that point. Now everything feels like, oh, it's possible. Joe Burrow's back. The Bengals torch them. Then they get a home game against the Bucs. Bucs are a better team. They beat them. And then in New England, cold weather, very possible snow, very likely frozen tundra-like conditions against a Patriots team that's more physical, that is going to potentially be playing for the division at that point. Patriots win. The only question in my mind is, are the Dolphins 6-7 and then losing their last 4 games, or are they 7-7 and then losing their last 3 games?
Regardless, that's 6-11 or 7-10, and both of those fall squarely into the realm of
same old Dolphins.
Absolutely. Shout out to Ski15194, who is tuning in live to the Same Old Dolphins show from the Texans-Bills game. That's fantastic. From the Thursday night game. We appreciate you, Ski. Thanks for watching. I agree that I think the road forward probably sees them winning 2 to 3 more games. And again, the result is this ends up being an extremely same old Dolphins season. You know, if they had made it through the whole season with only 2 or 3 wins, that is a truly a disaster class of a season that ends you with a super high draft pick and a real opportunity to sort of clean house. If you finish 6-7, or finish with 6 wins, 7 wins, you're that's still not good enough. And but it ultimately, like I said, makes the whole thing fall in that same old Dolphins realm. So, I mean, to be clear, I just don't see this team making the playoffs. I know there are people out there that are holding hopes and thinking, listen, if the Dolphins win out, maybe they can do it. But again, the Dolphins have so many conference losses already that even if they are to win out, the odds of the way that things would have to unfold for them to be able to move up and realistically finish 10-7, they would have to finish 10-7, and there would have to be a number of teams that finish 9-8. They'd have to be 10-7 and the only team with that record to be able to get in at that 7 spot is my opinion. So I'm not really holding out hope that this is a playoff team. And again, as we talked about on Monday, to what end, even if they were to make the playoffs. But so that really leads us to having this conversation that we need to have in this show is, what does the future hold? And when we talk about the future, we don't mean really the next 6 weeks. We mean what happens for the Dolphins beyond that. And Brain, the way that I look at this is I see 3 primary possibilities. And from there, each of those main possibilities has several different results that, other dominoes could fall based on what I think are really the 3 true outcomes for this offseason. And those outcomes are, to me, they run it back with Champ Kelly as the GM and Mike McDaniel as the head coach. The only change was the firing of Chris Grier. Everything else is status quo. That's one. The second one is they bring in a new GM, but retain Mike McDaniel. And then the third possibility is Mike McDaniel is fired and a new GM comes in. I suppose there is also a fourth possibility, which is Champ Kelly stays as GM, but Mike McDaniel is fired. But I think that's incredibly unlikely. So the 3 main outcomes are Kelly and McDaniel are gone. New GM comes in who hires a new head coach. Clean slate. Champ Kelly goes, but a new GM comes in, but McDaniel stays because Ross says McDaniel has to stay. or they just run it all the way back. Those are, in my mind, the three possibilities. Brain, what are your thoughts? Are those the three possibilities for you, or do you see other permutations that I'm not thinking of? And again, I'm only focusing on the head coach and the general manager here because I think the rest of it will shake out depending on what the route is from there.
Yeah, well, I think if Mike McDaniel gets fired, I think they're cleaning house. I suppose there's a world where they fire Mike McDaniel, but they keep Champ Kelly, and then Champ Kelly hires the new GM or hires the new head coach. But I don't see that happening. I think if there's a decision made to fire Mike McDaniel, then that signifies that there's going to be a real GM search, and Champ Kelly won't be named the new GM, and he will have just been the interim GM. So I agree that those are the possibilities. The one that has some nuance to it is the one where Champ Kelly is the interim GM, and at the end of the season, they announced they will be doing a GM search and they will be hiring a new GM, but they don't fire Mike McDaniel. And my question there is, are they, when they're doing that GM search, does that new GM, does the new GM that they hire have the ability to make the decision on the head coach? Or is it, we're only, like they did when they fired Mike Tannenbaum, or not Mike Tannenbaum, when they fired Jeff Ireland and Joe Philbin was the coach, that Stephen Ross says whoever the new GM is will have to retain Mike McDaniel as the head coach. Because if that's the case, that is literally the worst case scenario. Literally the worst case scenario, because it immediately whittles down your candidates for the job. Because as much as there are only 32 jobs, GM jobs, and people who have designs on being a GM are going to be attracted to that job, whether you think the Dolphins job is an attractive job for a GM or a not attractive job for a GM is debatable, and it's been debated in several different articles. One thing that's not going to be debated is how attractive the job is if you're told that you don't get to bring in your own head coach. And so any high quality hire there ultimately will probably take a pause and say, I'm not really interested in that job because I'm set up to fail right from the jump. And then the other thing that's entirely possible is that Stephen Ross, who's very tuned in to PR and, not and the optics of things, he may very well say, hey, I'm not going to fire Mike McDaniel. I'm going to let the new GM make that decision. And then he goes and has a GM search, but we're not in the interview room. We don't know what those conversations are. So if he says that, and then he hires a new GM, and that new GM comes out and says, I'm going to run it back with Mike McDaniel because I believe Mike McDaniel is a good head coach, I don't care how they spin it. You know what happened there, because no GM is coming in here with Mike McDaniel's resume and saying, I'm coming in and I'm keeping Mike McDaniel as head coach. And I'm sorry, it's just not happening. So no matter how they frame it, if Mike McDaniel is back as the head coach and there's a new GM, you know what happened. They either forced the hand of the GM and said, we're only going to hire the GM. We're only going to hire you if you keep Mike McDaniel. Or they went out and they did their interviews and they didn't say that, but then they picked the guy who answered the question, well, what would you do with head coach? And they said, I'm going to keep Mike McDaniel. And they said, that's our guy.
Yeah, I think the telltale sign that the Dolphins are basically forcing McDaniel on the next GM is that you get a list of candidates that the Dolphins are interested in talking to, and then you have people either turning down the interview or doing the interview and then withdrawing interest. Like anything like that happening will be a huge red flag that that is what's happening in the interview room. Like, and I want to be clear, I have no problem if a general manager genuinely comes in and, I would question his ability to do the job if he came in and made the decision that Mike McDaniel is the head coach that he wants. But
That's it.
I don't, I, what
It's
I
already,
can't have,
it's already in the cart. You already know what's happening. Like
Exactly.
you already know we made the bad hire if that
Yeah.
happens. Like it's already a mark against him. If the first decision that the new GM makes is I'm keeping Mike McDaniel as the head coach, it's already a bad hire. You already know. And that's the whole point here. And then just to take it a step further, because you need to extrapolate these things out to understand just why that is such a bad decision if you do that. Because if you hire a new GM and then you keep Mike McDaniel, there is a high likelihood that this team is not going to be appreciably better next season. And then Mike McDaniel is going to get fired. And now you have that new GM who might not have been the most qualified choice, who may have only gotten the job because he agreed to keep Mike McDaniel on board, which ultimately sacrificed better candidates. And now this is the new GM that is now picking your next head coach. And you've done the same thing that the Dolphins have been doing for the past, 20 years. Well, maybe not 20 years. Since the thing that they've been doing since they fired Jeff Ireland, which is not cleaning house and having a new GM that comes in and sets the entire structure of your organization. Because that's what needs to happen. Whether it's a GM, whether it's a president, whether it's a football czar, whatever the title is, there needs to be one person that comes in and completely cleans house and then sets up the new structure, because everything that is here is toxic. It doesn't work. And running back Champ Kelly is almost as bad, because if you're running it back with Champ Kelly, then you're basically, all you did was get rid of Chris Greer, and you kept because if you keep Champ Kelly, you're not changing any of the people below Champ Kelly. You're not changing your head of scouting. You're not changing your entire scouting department and the way you're doing everything. You basically just got rid of Chris Greer to promote the guy who's been working under Chris Greer.
Yeah.
Both are terrible scenarios.
Yeah, I agree that both are bad. And what I think is the ideal situation for the Dolphins this offseason is Mike McDaniel gets fired, a new GM is brought in, and the Dolphins have an opportunity to start fresh. And if I'm Champ Kelly, who I think very much knows that he is here in a sort of transitional role for the team, the argument for starting fresh is so strong, because you look at what is of the many things that this team needs to fix going forward, the biggest one is that it doesn't have a franchise quarterback. It just doesn't. And the fact of the matter is, the Dolphins' next franchise quarterback is not in the 2026 draft. There is, however, an opportunity to find that quarterback in the 2027 draft, which means 2026 is a perfect year to have it be a reset year to sort of clear the decks. And if it means taking on an enormous cap hit of dead cap because you're cutting loose the quarterback, that's totally fine. It's completely fine to do that. Take on that dead cap, take in all of that, sit there with all of that dead money, cut all of these bad contracts, keep the young players, bring in some other veteran pieces to fill out the 53-man roster, play out the season, evaluating the cheap talent that you've brought in to fill out the roster and that young talent as well. Evaluate them, determine which are the pieces that you want to have in place. And then when that 2027 draft comes around, draft well and make things happen. And from there, now you're in a position to build and start to have a competitive team again. That to me is the best possible way forward with this organization. Get rid of Mike McDaniel, get rid of everybody below, clean house, and then bring in that new GM and let them start from scratch with a new head coach and a new system.
Absolutely. It's the way to do it. I have very little faith that they're going to get it right.
Yeah, that's my problem. That's my problem here. Anything else to add, Brain? Is there any, like, can you make an argument for running it back with Champ Kelly and Mike McDaniel and having things actually work out?
This is what I would say. I would rather run it back with Champ Kelly and Mike McDaniel than bring in a new GM that has to have Mike McDaniel as the head coach. Because then you still have the possibility that when things go bad for you next year, that you ultimately clean house because you're not tied to some long-term contract with Champ Kelly. And you're, further into the contract with Mike McDaniel, so you don't have to buy him out or whatever after his contract extension. It's still they can afford, Stephen Ross can afford to buy out whatever contracts he wants. And he should clean house. But if he doesn't clean house, I would rather it's 6 of one, half a dozen or the other. They're both bad decisions, but I would rather run it back with Champ Kelly and Mike McDaniel than the alternative, which sets us up so perfectly to be the same thing that we've been.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, and I think moving off of this quarterback sooner rather than later is the right decision for this team. There's very little to be gained by keeping him around. And as I said, taking that, just eating that cap hit and having it be done and dusted is ultimately the right thing to do. It's a tough thing to do, but when you understand that you're not looking to win right now, that it's an okay decision to make.
Yeah, but then you got to start making decisions on other guys on the roster because, the thing is it becomes extremely difficult to even field a 53-man roster when you carry as much dead cap as they're already set to carry, and then you add that in. If they want to sign Devon Achane, which if they're not trading him, they've got to give him an extension. If you're going to extend him, then you've got even less cap space.
Not necessarily, because you extend him and then
but he's on a rookie. He's on a third-year rookie. He's on a third season of his rookie deal. So it's not like the fourth year of his rookie deal is not going to maybe, I don't know, because you could front load everything into a bonus or whatever. But and then you've got decisions to make, with a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick. You've got, what happens when Jordan Brooks makes the Pro Bowl and then he's going into the last year of his deal and he says, hey, I want a contract extension. You gave Zach Sealer a contract extension. I just made the Pro Bowl. I was the best player on your defense all year. You're trying to build for the future. Am I a piece of the future? You got to give me a big contract.
Yeah. I mean, what I will say is that there will absolutely be nerds in the building who can figure out the math and make that all work. And so, to me, the biggest thing is to listen. The biggest thing is you bring in a new general manager, and that general manager was not responsible for the contract that Tua is on. And so therefore it is up to him to be creative about how to deal with those finances. And I'm sure they'll be able to figure out a way to do that that is beneficial to the team going forward, at least in theory.
I think it pigeonholes you though, because if you do it and you put yourself in a position, like it's not a great scenario either way. Let me be clear. But if you pigeonhole yourself into a situation where you have to carry that much dead cap, so now you have to make these decisions where the only way that you can even field a 53-man roster is by giving contract extensions to guys that you're not sure you want to give contract extensions to. Like an Aaron Brewer, who's going to be going into the last year of his contract, and a Jordan Brooks, who's going to be going into the last year of his contract, a Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's going to be going into the last year of his contract. And it's like, yes, you can give these guys extensions, which will afford you more cap space in the short term to ultimately stomach the dead cap hit that you're taking on from Tua. But then you're committing yourself to these players long term who you might not necessarily think are guys that you want to build the roster around. Maybe Jordan Brooks. Yeah. But I don't know if it is Aaron Brewer. Maybe. But who's the new GM? What's the vision of what the new team is going to be? Like, is the new team going to be, we're running it back with the same kind of offensive system? In which case, okay, yeah, maybe it does make sense to extend Aaron Brewer. But if it's going to be like, no, we're too small, we need to get bigger, and as much as we like Aaron Brewer, it doesn't really fit with what we want to be, then you don't want to extend Aaron Brewer. So you don't want to put yourself into a situation where the only way that you can fit your cap space in is by extending a guy that you don't really want to extend. I guess at that point you can explore trades, and there's a lot of different things that you can there's a lot of different scenarios. But when you put that much dead cap space out there, I'm not saying that if you can find a way to do it, I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's extremely difficult given the cap situation that they're in, that if they have to carry all that dead cap space from Tua to ultimately, because it's not about fielding a competitive roster at that point, because you're not going to be competitive. The idea is to tank, but about not making bad decisions with the rest of your roster because you're so strapped for cash.
Yeah. It's next year is going to be kind of a bad deal, I think, any way you slice it. And then literally Mike is in the chat, said the same thing. Any way you slice it, it's going to be a bad year for the Dolphins. And I tend to agree. Like I tend to have a very difficult time seeing how 2026 is going to be a good year for the Miami Dolphins. And it's one of those things where we're exactly in one of those spots where the franchise can do one of two things. They can do everything in their power to try to compete and do the Jeff Ireland thing. They can do everything in their power to try to compete next year and fight and scratch and claw to get to 8, 9, maybe 10 wins next season. Or they can lean into transition and say, this is what it is. Let's lean in. Let's let this be a transition year and use this year as an evaluation year so that we're putting ourselves in a position to be closer to competing in 2027. That's what I hope they do. Again, I'm not saying they necessarily need to tank, although I'm also not saying that would be a bad idea. But I just think that I guess there's more to be gained from leaning into the fact that you're not going to be a Super Bowl contender next year than there is to the idea of we have to do everything in our power to get to 10 wins, which is the mistake that this team has made over and over and over again, which is why this is the Same Old Dolphins show. So that is going to wrap us up for this episode of the podcast here. We will be back on Monday. On Monday's show, so I guess this is the programming note for everybody here. We will be back on Monday with preview show. Oh, excuse me. We'll be back with our
Yeah, I think we lost Josh. Yeah, I don't know what happened with his mic, and I wasn't sure if it was just something where I wasn't hearing him on my end. But we're going to be back with a show on Monday previewing the Saints game. We're going to get our Saints preview done earlier, and then on Extra, the extra show, the bonus episode, we're going to be going around the league making our picks, and we'll probably have a bagel of the week. And then next Thursday on the regular show, we're not going to have it's not going to be like a normal same old Dolphins, but we have last year around Thanksgiving time.
Don't spoil it.
Okay, we have wow, he's back right on time just to tell me not to spoil it. We have a Thanksgiving surprise for you on Thanksgiving that will be dropping. So just stay tuned. Follow us on social media. Follow us whether it's on Blue Sky or Instagram or X or whatever they're calling it. And we'll put the update out there. But either way, there will be a show. You just don't know what it will be on Thanksgiving.
That's right. And if you're a Dolphins Talk Extra subscriber, head over to Dolphins Talk Extra right now, because me, Aaron the Brain, and Mike are about to do a dessert draft, drafting our favorite desserts. Get ready. I'm pumped up for this. So that's coming up next, live exclusively for Dolphins Talk Extra. Everybody else, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye, everybody. And don't forget, go Dolphins!
Let's eat some dessert.